In a poignant display of respect and reconciliation, former President Donald Trump attended the funeral of Pope Francis on April 26, 2025 at St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City. This gathering attracted global attention not only for the significance of the occasion but also for the complex history between the two figures who often found themselves at ideological odds during Trump's presidency. Trump, accompanied by First Lady Melania Trump, was seated prominently in the front row of the sunlit St. Peter's Square, an area filled with over 50 heads of state and dignitaries who came to pay their respects to the late pontiff. The funeral service unfolded on a cloudless day with attendees dressed in somber black attire, while Trump stood out in a dark blue suit and lighter blue tie. Melania, a practicing Catholic, wore a black dress and veil, reflecting the solemnity of the occasion. The couple paid their respects at the wooden coffin of Pope Francis, who passed away at the age of 88. In a notable diplomatic move, Trump met briefly with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy inside St. Peter's Basilica prior to the service. Their encounter was described by Zelenskyy as very symbolic and had the potential to be historic, especially considering their tumultuous previous interactions. The discussion reportedly focused on the ongoing war in Ukraine and efforts to reach a resolution, with Trump asserting that Russia and Ukraine were very close to a deal. Trump's complex relationship with the late Pope was highlighted throughout the event. Although he expressed condolences and praised Francis as a good man who worked hard and loved the world, their interactions during Trump's presidency were often fraught with tension. Francis famously criticized Trump's immigration policies, equating the construction of walls to a failure of Christian values. In 2016, he stated that a person who thinks only about building walls wherever they may be and not building bridges is not Christian, a comment that Trump found disgraceful. In the days leading up to the funeral, Trump had spoken of his intention to attend out of respect for the Pope, acknowledging their differences while recognizing Francis's commitment to global issues, particularly regarding migrants and climate change. Despite their disagreements, Trump noted that he had ordered U.S. flags to be flown at half-staff in honor of the Pope, a gesture underscoring the respect he held for Francis's contributions to the world. During the funeral, Trump and Melania were seen holding hands and sharing moments of affection, a stark contrast to the political discord that had characterized their relationship with the Pope. Their attendance, alongside former President Joe Biden and other world leaders, underscored the significance of Francis's legacy, which many described as one of compassion and outreach to marginalized communities. As the service concluded, speculation arose regarding the possibility of additional meetings for Trump and Zelenskyy, though Trump's motorcade departed promptly after the ceremony, signaling a swift return to the United States. As Zelenskyy remained in Rome for further discussions with other leaders, including French President Emmanuel Macron, it became clear that diplomatic efforts would continue beyond the Pope's funeral. The moment marked not just a farewell to a beloved leader but also a reflection on the ongoing challenges facing global diplomacy. As the world watches, the interactions between Trump and Zelenskyy may pave the way for future negotiations, particularly concerning the conflict in Ukraine. The legacy of Pope Francis, characterized by calls for peace and unity, continues to resonate as leaders navigate the complexities of international relations in a shifting geopolitical landscape. In a remarkable intersection of faith and politics, the passing of Pope Francis has reignited the long-standing tensions between him and former President Donald Trump over immigration policies. The two figures, whose paths crossed repeatedly over the years, had starkly different views on the treatment of migrants, a topic that has become increasingly contentious in global discourse. Following the announcement of Pope Francis' death at the age of 88, Trump expressed his condolences, describing the pontiff as a good man who worked hard and loved the world. During the White House Easter egg roll, he announced the lowering of U.S. flags to half-staff in the Pope's honor. However, this sentiment was juxtaposed against a backdrop of years marked by verbal clashes, particularly regarding Trump's immigration stance. From the early days of Trump's 2016 presidential campaign, he and Pope Francis were at odds. The Pope openly criticized Trump's pledge to build a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border, stating, "A person who thinks only about building walls is not Christian." Trump in turn asserted his Christian identity and suggested that no religious leader should question another's faith, framing the Pope's comments as politically motivated. As recently as the day before his death, Pope Francis reiterated his commitment to advocating for migrants, expressing concern over the contempt directed towards the vulnerable and marginalized populations. How much contempt is stirred up at times towards the vulnerable, the marginalized, and migrants, he lamented during his Easter address. This advocacy was met with Trump's equally forceful rhetoric, especially as he prepared for his second term, during which he planned to implement mass deportation policies. In a letter to U.S. bishops, Pope Francis articulated his disapproval of such measures, arguing that they unfairly burden those fleeing dire circumstances. He emphasized the importance of recognizing the dignity of migrants, stating that deporting individuals who have fled poverty or violence damages the dignity of many men and women. This poignant message was a continuation of his papacy's focus on compassion and mercy, contrasting sharply with Trump's hardline approach. The juxtaposition of their legacies became even more pronounced when Trump announced his intention to attend the Pope's funeral in Rome, a gesture that seemed to acknowledge their complicated relationship. When asked about the Pope's legacy, Trump remarked, "He's a very good man who especially loved people who were having a hard time." A statement that could be seen as an ironic nod to their ideological differences. As the world reflects on the impact of Pope Francis, attention is also drawn to the ongoing geopolitical landscape, particularly the conflict in Ukraine. In a related development, Trump recently claimed that Russia and Ukraine are very close to a deal regarding a ceasefire following discussions with Russian President Vladimir Putin. He described the negotiations as constructive, suggesting that most of the major points are agreed to. This assertion came amidst broader discussions about territorial concessions, including the contentious status of Crimea, which remains a significant point of contention in U.S.-Ukraine relations. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, while acknowledging the potential for negotiations, has firmly rejected any concessions regarding Crimea, emphasizing that only the Ukrainian people have the right to determine their territorial integrity. This complex dynamic underscores the challenges facing Trump as he attempts to navigate both domestic and international issues, with the shadow of Pope Francis' humanitarian advocacy looming over immigration policies and foreign relations. As the world bids farewell to Pope Francis, the implications of his teachings on compassion and dignity for all, particularly migrants, remain a pertinent counterpoint to the political maneuvers of figures like Trump. The intersection of their legacies invites reflection on the moral responsibilities leaders hold in an increasingly polarized world. Future developments in both U.S. immigration policy and international negotiations, especially concerning Ukraine, will likely continue to reflect the tensions highlighted by their contrasting approaches to leadership and humanity. As President Donald Trump approaches the 100-day mark of his second term, the political landscape has become increasingly complex and contentious. This period, characterized by aggressive policy initiatives and a palpable shift in the federal workforce, reveals not only the administration's priorities but also the societal tensions that have surfaced in response. In his first weeks back in the Oval Office, Trump has taken bold steps that signal a return to his combative political style. However, this has come at a cost. Public approval ratings have begun to dip as his administration grapples with criticisms over its handling of various issues. The whole country is going through this kind of enormous, disruptive, destabilizing experience, noted Susan B. Glasser of The New Yorker, emphasizing the emotional toll on both federal employees and ordinary citizens. The current political climate is steeped in a politics of fear, as federal workers face significant anxiety over potential job security amidst mass layoffs and policy changes that blurred the lines between governance and partisanship. One of the most controversial actions taken by the Trump administration has been the reinterpretation of the Hatch Act, which historically limited political activities by federal employees to ensure a nonpartisan government. The recent changes allow federal workers to openly display support for Trump while at work, including wearing campaign merchandise like MAGA hats. Critics have voiced strong objections to this move, arguing it fundamentally undermines the integrity of the federal workforce. Kathleen Clark, a law professor, lamented that such actions threaten to further politicize the government's professional workforce, turning public service offices into political arenas. The Office of Special Counsel, responsible for enforcing the Hatch Act, has also seen significant shifts. The recent removal of the Merit Systems Protection Board from its role in reviewing Hatch Act violations has raised concerns about the enforcement of ethical standards within the government. As the administration seeks to appoint more loyalists to key positions, the implications of these changes could lead to an environment where political loyalty overshadows professional competence and impartiality. Amidst these developments, Trump's ambitious policy agenda continues to unfold with mixed results. While he has made strides in some areas, such as proposing new economic initiatives, the administration's overall direction has faced scrutiny. A recent report from CNN highlighted the challenges Trump faces in fulfilling his campaign promises, suggesting that his vision of an expansive political empire may be at odds with the realities of governance. The struggle to balance aggressive policymaking with public sentiment could prove pivotal as the administration moves forward. The societal effects of these political maneuvers are profound. Federal employees already under considerable stress now experience heightened fears of retaliation and job loss as the administration's mass layoffs loom. As Richard Painter, a former chief ethics lawyer in the George W. Bush White House, pointed out, the potential for political expression in government workplaces could be destructive, diminishing public trust in federal services. As Trump navigates this precarious landscape, the coming weeks will be critical. The administration's ability to manage its agenda while addressing the growing discontent among federal workers and the general populace will determine not only its immediate future but also its legacy. With tensions running high and political divisions deepening, the next phase of Trump's presidency will require not only strategic policymaking but also a keen awareness of the human cost of political decisions. As history has shown, the path forward is fraught with challenges, but it also offers opportunities for renewal and reflection on the principles of governance in a democracy. As the complexities of international trade continue to unfold, the economic landscape in the United States is feeling the tremors of President Donald Trump's aggressive tariff policies. While the administration touts a resurgence in American manufacturing as a direct result of these policies, the reality is far more nuanced, with both immediate and long-term implications emerging across various sectors. In recent weeks, President Trump has made headlines for his contradictory statements regarding tariffs, leaving many uncertain about the future of trade relationships. His declaration of a Liberation Day on April 2, during which he imposed staggering tariffs of up to 145% on Chinese goods, has led to retaliatory measures from China, which placed 125% tariffs on U.S. exports. The outcome has sparked concerns about a potential recession as both nations grapple with the fallout from this trade war. In interviews, Trump has expressed optimism, suggesting that new trade deals are imminent, yet he simultaneously acknowledges the challenges of conducting negotiations. "I will at a certain point in the not-too-distant future set a fair price of tariffs for different countries," he stated, bewildering both domestic and international observers. As uncertainty grows, companies across the U.S. are reporting a significant slowdown in hiring and investment, with the Federal Reserve's latest Beige Book noting an escalation in business apprehension. The ripple effects of Trump's tariff policies are being acutely felt in cities like Nashville, Tennessee, where the local economy is heavily reliant on tourism, particularly from Canadian visitors. With nearly half of Nashville's international tourists hailing from Canada, the tariffs and the president's derogatory remarks have curbed travel, leading to cancellations and a projected $2 billion loss in spending if current trends continue. Local businesses, including tour operators, are already feeling the pinch as bookings dwindle, prompting local leaders to voice concern over the long-term economic ramifications. Conversely, proponents of Trump's economic agenda argue that the tariffs are incentivizing manufacturers to relocate to the U.S. Reports of companies like Schneider Electric and CRAZard expanding their operations in Tennessee have been heralded as signs of a manufacturing renaissance. U.S. Representative John Rose, a vocal supporter of Trump, claims that tariffs have forced companies to invest domestically, stating the very threat of tariffs have resulted in company after company pledging to invest billions of dollars in the U.S. However, the reality for many small businesses is starkly different. As costs rise due to increased tariffs on imported goods, manufacturers are wrestling with higher prices that consumers are reluctant to absorb. The CEO of Flexport has indicated a more than 60% decline in container bookings from China to the U.S. since the tariffs took effect. A clear sign that supply chains are being disrupted. As the administration continues to navigate these turbulent waters, the lack of a coherent strategy is raising questions among foreign governments and business leaders. At the recent International Monetary Fund meetings, discussions revealed a pervasive uncertainty about the U.S. trade stance, with comments like, "There's not a coherent strategy at the moment on what the tariffs are supposed to achieve," echoing the sentiments of many economists. Looking ahead, the trajectory of Trump's tariff policies remains uncertain. While some manufacturers may benefit from a temporary surge in localized production, the broader implications for the U.S. economy could be detrimental. The ongoing trade disputes are likely to exacerbate inflationary pressures and disrupt the stability that businesses and consumers crave. As the landscape evolves, both supporters and critics of the administration will be watching closely. The question remains, can the U.S. effectively balance the need for robust domestic manufacturing with the realities of global trade dynamics? With negotiations ongoing and the stakes higher than ever, the economic future hangs in the balance, poised for potential shifts that could redefine America's position on the world stage. In a striking wave of personnel changes, the Pentagon is facing unprecedented turmoil as Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has seen his Chief of Staff Joe Casper ousted amid ongoing investigations into the use of insecure communication methods for sensitive military information. This latest development marks the fourth significant dismissal within a week, highlighting a growing crisis in the upper echelons of military leadership. Casper's departure comes as part of a broader scrutiny of Hegseth's management, particularly involving his communication practices via the encrypted messaging app Signal. The app has reportedly been used to discuss sensitive operational details, including military strikes, raising alarm among military officials about potential breaches of national security. According to a defense official, while Casper will be reassigned to special projects within the Pentagon, the implications of his exit signal deeper issues within Hegseth's administration. The upheaval is alarming given the rarity of such high-level turnover within the military's leadership structure. In the days leading up to Casper's ousting, two of Hegseth's aides, Dan Caldwell and Darren Selnick, were placed on administrative leave amid investigations into alleged leaks of sensitive information. This sequence of events has not only drawn media attention but has also prompted concerns from lawmakers about the stability and integrity of the Pentagon's operations. Casper, who has a background in political and military affairs, previously served in the Trump administration and has connections to controversial figures including Representative Duncan Hunter Jr., who was pardoned by Trump after being convicted of misuse of campaign funds. His brief tenure as Chief of Staff began in January, and he has made headlines for contentious remarks regarding military operations, such as boasting about deportation efforts involving gang members. The fallout from Hegseth's management style extends beyond Casper's ousting. Vice Admiral Shoshana Chatfield, a respected military leader and NATO representative, was dismissed earlier this month, further emphasizing Hegseth's aggressive approach to personnel changes that many view as politically motivated. Critics allege that this pattern of dismissals is part of an effort to eliminate officials associated with the previous administration's diversity and inclusion initiatives. As the Pentagon grapples with these internal challenges, the White House has begun to search for new senior staff to stabilize Hegseth's office. NPR reports that 4 individuals have been promoted to senior advisory roles, though their qualifications are under scrutiny. For example, Sean Parnell, who has been elevated to assistant to the Secretary of Defense, lacks the extensive experience typically expected of individuals in such high-level positions. Many observers express skepticism about the effectiveness of the new appointments, noting that they may not adequately address the ongoing turmoil. As the situation unfolds, Hegseth's leadership faces increasing scrutiny from both sides of the political aisle. Democrats and some Republicans have voiced that the secretary's management style may not only jeopardize military operations but also hinder the functioning of the Pentagon at large. Hegseth's absence from traditional press briefings, opting instead for informal video updates, further alienates him from established communication norms that are crucial for transparency and accountability in government. Looking forward, the Pentagon is at a crossroads. With significant vacancies in senior leadership and ongoing investigations into sensitive communication practices, the road ahead will demand not only decisive action but also a commitment to restoring confidence in military operations. As Hegseth and his team navigate this precarious moment, the implications of their decisions will resonate far beyond the walls of the Pentagon, potentially affecting national security and military readiness for years to come. In a historic convergence of faith, politics, and diplomacy, leaders from around the globe gathered in Vatican City on Saturday for the funeral of Pope Francis. The event not only marked a significant moment in the Catholic Church but also served as a unique backdrop for high-stakes diplomatic conversations among world leaders. Notably, U.S. President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Their presence at the funeral highlighted the fragile state of international relations, particularly concerning the ongoing conflict in Ukraine and broader geopolitical tensions. The funeral, attended by an array of dignitaries including British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, French President Emmanuel Macron, and former President Joe Biden, was a spectacle of both mourning and potential reconciliation. Trump, seated in the front row alongside his wife Melania, was positioned just a short distance from Zelenskyy, who was accompanied by his wife Alina. Their proximity was underscored by a brief but significant 15-minute meeting prior to the service, which both leaders characterized as productive and symbolic. Zelenskyy remarked on the meeting's historical potential and acknowledgment of the critical discussions surrounding the war in Ukraine. The seating arrangement drew attention, with Trump and Zelenskyy separated by only 10 seats and an aisle. Surrounded by leaders from supportive nations like Estonia and Finland. This juxtaposition of American and Ukrainian leadership at such a poignant event raised eyebrows, especially given their recent interactions that have included both negotiations and public disagreements. The atmosphere was charged with the weight of their discussions as they navigated the complexities of diplomacy amid the backdrop of global mourning. In addition to the political figures, the funeral attracted royalty and other influential leaders who shared the front rows of St. Peter's Square. Among them were Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and Argentina's President Javier Milei, both seated prominently in view of the Pope's coffin. The arrangement of dignitaries, meticulously organized by protocol, served to symbolize the interconnectedness of international relations during a time of turmoil. As Trump engages in multifaceted diplomatic efforts, including appointing his longtime friend Steve Witkoff as his envoy for delicate negotiations involving Iran, Russia, and Gaza, the complexities of these discussions are becoming increasingly apparent. Witkoff, who is navigating unprecedented territory in international diplomacy, faces skepticism over his lack of experience in such high-stakes negotiations. Critics express concerns that his approach may oversimplify the nuanced issues at play, drawing parallels to real estate deals rather than recognizing the profound human and political ramifications involved. The juxtaposition of Witkoff's new role alongside the ongoing diplomatic entanglements at the Vatican underscores a broader narrative: the intersection of personal relationships and international politics. Trump's long-standing friendship with Witkoff is emblematic of his administration's reliance on personal connections in shaping foreign policy. Witkoff's recent statements, including a controversial remark that Russian President Vladimir Putin is not a bad guy, have sparked debate over the appropriateness of such sentiments in light of Russia's actions in Ukraine. As the world watches these developments unfold, the impact of the Vatican's diplomatic stage cannot be understated. The funeral of Pope Francis has not only served as a moment of reflection for millions but also as a catalyst for dialogue among leaders grappling with pressing global challenges. The future of these discussions remains uncertain, yet the confluence of faith and diplomacy at the Vatican may pave the way for unforeseen collaborations and resolutions in the coming months. The global community continues to hold its breath, hoping that the dialogues initiated in such a solemn setting will lead to meaningful progress toward peace.